The recovery timeline for Pascal Siakam's injury has been revealed, and he's going to be out for at least a couple of weeks and potentially longer. So we'll dive into that report in this video, as well as who's going to need to step up in Pascal's absence, and take a look at some of the criticism Nick Nurse has been receiving following the multitude of injuries at the start of the year to our star players. So a bunch of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here with Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And folks, if you guys want to stay up to date with everything surrounding the Toronto Raptors, definitely hit subscribe. It means the world to us. We're on that road to 27,000 subscribers now, so definitely hit that sub button if you haven't already. But let's dive into the news. And today, we had a Woj bomb come out and essentially break that Pascal Siakam's injury timeline has been revealed. Now, we made a video yesterday breaking down the report that Pascal Siakam was doubtful for the game tonight against the Chicago Bulls, and there wasn't much else clarity in that front. But then, we also later after that video, reports came out that Pascal was getting an MRI that night, and then we'd have a better idea of how long he'd be out, for the coming games. And today that news was revealed as a little Woj bomb came out that indicated Pascal Siakam will be re-evaluated in 2 weeks after being diagnosed with a right adductor strain. Now, as we broke down in the video last night, there's a lot of potential issues that can come from these groin injuries. We broke down the tweet from the MD on Twitter, essentially saying that, it's all about how they sort of progress. Siakam's dealt with 2 of these injuries in the past, so this could be something that keeps him out for a significant period of time. Now, it's encouraging that Woj said that he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks, but that could indicate that, okay, if you recovers quickly as the initial reaction when we WebMD'd everything. Sometimes these strains can last just for a couple of weeks. If you heal fully properly, then, he can be bounced back right on the court in that 2-week time span. Or if the previous injuries sort of come into play, or he doesn't really heal right, he doesn't give the proper time to rest and recover, this could be an injury that keeps him out for not just weeks, but potentially months for this Raptors team. So that's where the reevaluated terminology comes into play. And while I'm happy that he's not surely listed out as like a month-long injury or a couple months out, the really evaluated timeline does scare me a little bit because Pascal Siakam, as mentioned, is integral to the Toronto Raptors' success this season. He's been an MVP candidate to start off this year, averaging like 25, 10, and 7. So, the Toronto Raptors need this guy back into the lineup as quickly as possible, but obviously we don't want to rush him and make it to a point where he could be out for, who knows, the rest of the season or something like that if he doesn't heal correct and we throw him right back into the fire. But if Pascal's going to be out for a significant period of time, who's going to need to step up in his absence? And that's what we're breaking down now. And there's one guy who I think is really going to clearly need to jump a role with Pascal Siakam out. It might not be a player that you think, because I've seen a lot of people come to mind with Scotty Barnes, who, in my opinion, just needs to be more aggressive and step up in general, right? If the Raptors want to succeed this season, Scotty Barnes needs to take that second-year leap. And we saw it, in the fourth quarter against the Dallas Mavericks. Scotty Barnes, with the basketball in his hand, has the opportunity to, flex his finishing ability around the rim, work on, if he's not settling for jumpers, right? The jumper does look more fluid. I don't mind him taking more, within the flow of the offense. But Scotty Barnes' passing, driving ability, all that needs to be there. But the one guy, especially with Fred VanVleet's absence, or at least questionable, continuously being questionable game in, game out for probably the foreseeable weeks or so, but we need Delano Banton to specifically come in these games and provide some valuable to this team, because it doesn't seem like Malachi Flynn is going to get much run for this Nick Nurse team. He's chilling in the Nick Nursery. It doesn't seem like Flynn's going to get an opportunity. Jeff Doughton's a guy that I'd love to see get some run out there, get some, court time to flex his passing ability, to show his floaters, to show his mid-range and stuff. But we need someone that can come out and facilitate for this team, run the point guard position, and someone that Nick Nurse is going to trust on the offense and defensive end of the floor. And Delano Banton's a guy that I believe has played every single game this season. He's definitely above Malachi Flynn, Jeff Doughton in terms of the pecking order right now. And Fred VanVleet is a dude that is dealing with injuries and should not be playing 14 minutes a night when he's coming back from this back injury. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care if he's fully healthy. Fred VanVleet, just like Pascal Siakam, we'll discuss some of the criticism of Nick Nurse later in this podcast, but we can't have our top guys now, especially dealing with injuries, playing ridiculous amounts of minutes, right? It's loading up on them, and we've already seen a couple injuries starting off this year. We need someone that can sort of be a release valve for Freddie VanVleet for Scottie Barnes and come in, run the offense, and not go through a horrific scoring drought, not turn over the ball a bunch. And Delano Banton is really going to be that guy because I think he's going to be the dude that gets the opportunities. We've seen flashes of him playing well with the starting units, flashes of that three-point shot looking more effective out there, and we know he can facilitate. We know he can speed up the pace of the floor, but if he can play within the, the Raptors system of a half-court offense, then I think he can be relied upon to come in, get 15 to 20 minutes, give Fred VanVleet a proper blow, right? Keep Scottie Barnes from having to play 48 minutes in this game, being our starting wing, and then running the backup point guard minutes for Fred VanVleet. So Delano, I think, is the guy that's going to get the opportunity. I think he's going to be the guy Nick Nurse trusts the most, just because he's always going to bring it on the defensive end, have the length. Malachi Flynn has kind of looked at times shaky on the defensive end this year, but he has to be able to execute in the half-court offense. Too many times we have had scoring droughts when Delano Banton has come into the game, so he's going to need to be a dude that steps up for this squad right now. But speaking of rotation, speaking of people getting high minutes, there's been some criticism for our head coach, Nick Nurse, especially following the injury to Pascal Siakam. I'm going to discuss whether or not it's warranted. Basically, it's been a topic of discussion even last season about how Nick Nurse seems to be taking a page out of Tom Thibodeau's book and running our star players into the ground. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam led the league in minutes last season for guys that played more than, bubble, or what is it? Health and safety protocol guys that were, on rosters with 6 and 7 players, right? Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam were tops in the league in minutes this season, and that trend seemed to have been continuing this year, despite the fact we came to the season with an improved bench, even though Boucher and Otto Porter Jr. weren't fully back into the mix, right? It's something that was shaky, and now with Fred VanVleet being out for a week or so, Pascal Siakam being out, suffering an injury that's going to keep him out for at least 2 weeks, people are going at Nick Nurse's head saying, hey, this is what's happening when you overrun your guys, when you play them to the ground. And personally, while I do think Nick Nurse should dial back the minutes just a little bit for Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, you don't want them to be number 1 and 2 in the league in terms of players that provide any bit of value, that have any decent bit of sample size. I don't think the criticism is that warranted, especially the Pascal Siakam injury. If you watch the play, he literally just slipped on a wet spot, right? If he played 2 minutes or played 40 minutes that game, if he's out there on the court and just slipped on the court, right, that was going to happen regardless if he was in that situation. So I don't think Nick Nurse deserves, any hate or criticism due to the injury to Pascal Siakam. But, the more they're out there and the more you risk that sort of stuff, I guess it could be attributed to Fred VanVleet just a little bit. But guys, the best players are going to be playing the most minutes, and we were kind of depleted at our bench coming into the season. We discussed how Boucher and Otto Porter Jr. were likely going to be the 2 guys that, really could be relied upon off the bench. Obviously, Precious Achiuwa is going to have his ups and downs and stuff. And then, Bo Cruz, Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn, other guys that are in the fringe rotation, Thaddeus Young even this season a little bit, right? They aren't going to be guys. I think Thad could potentially be relied upon, Kem Birch, right? But they're not going to be high impact players that you can absolutely rely upon. And the Raptors had a tough schedule to start the season, right? I see where Nick Nurse is coming from. I do think especially Fred VanVleet's minutes should be dialed back because he's dealt with some load injuries just even last season, but I don't think it's something that he should be raked through the coals for. But let me know if you guys agree, disagree in the comment section below. But we're going to need to fill that that lack of playmaking void that we're getting with Fred VanVleet being in and out of the lineup and Pascal Siakam. Hopefully Delano steps up. Hopefully Siakam will be back in like a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks or so. But let me know what you guys think of this injury update. You guys are best to make it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on that road to 27,000 subscribers. Anyways, I'm signing off. Cheers.